All right, Eric, let's jump right into Tyree Wilson. Listen, he's an exciting player. As one of the commenters, Steve O, last night said, he has the highest ceiling he thinks of anyone in this entire draft. Maybe, maybe not. We still are Will Anderson people. We love Will Anderson.
Style.
But Tyree Wilson is intriguing. Very much so. I wonder, what's the fit with the defensive scheme that the Lions have for Tyree Wilson?
I don't want to say it changes, but he maybe gives you a couple different options on how you could play. He's a big guy, 6'6", 270 if I'm not mistaken, 275. He's kind of bordering the line as a hybrid tackle or edge rusher. Yeah. And he would just give you a different blend of what you could throw. I mean, he could overpower a tackle on the opposite end of Aiden Hutchinson, or maybe could slide next to Aiden and play the tackle next to Bugs or however else they plan to do it. He gives you that option to be able to do that. I think his physical ability gives you the ability to be a game breaker. Like, he does things with his wingspan and his strength that you can't game plan for. And having that at your disposal where you could play with a defensive line that could wear your O-line down by the beginning of the second half, that's a huge benefit to have. And I think that would be the obvious number one strength for him with the Detroit Lions if he were to be drafted.
So that's exciting.
It is.
Right? And maybe you're like, okay, I've heard the name, but maybe I don't know that much about Tyree Wilson. So let's talk about Tyree Wilson, right? As a Texas Tech Red Raider, he's a fifth-year senior, which means he redshirted 1 year. Started his college career at Texas A&M. Did not really go so well, but he broke out, according to PFF, in 2022. So, and I'll show you how he broke out. He only played 388 snaps in 2020 and graded out at a 52.3. His snaps almost doubled to 605 in 2021 and graded out at 72.7. And then he did deal with a foot injury towards the end of this last season, so he only got 533 snaps, or 38 snaps, I'm sorry, but he graded out at a 74.5. And his pass rush grade was a 79.4.
I like that.
So one of the higher grades that you're going to get. This is a guy that has come on late, known as a late bloomer, right? We all love them. He's not necessarily a project, but a late bloomer, and somebody that the Lions are very high on. In fact, there were reports, and we put one out on Detroit Sports Nation, that the Lions have given Tyree Wilson a very, very high grade, which makes you think he's one of the names on their board for number 6 for sure.
And he's one of the more slept on names, which is kind of crazy because defensive line is the unit that everybody has been harping on all off season. And we talked about, cornerbacks. We've talked about the need for linebackers, D tackles, trading up for Will Anderson. And outside of Steve-O, I haven't seen a lot of love for Tyree Wilson. And I think he will be a perfect fit for what they need. It would just kind of change to give them different options on what they could do, depending on how they play him on that D-line.
He plays in a Big 12 defense.
He does, yeah.
Right? And so there could be that knock, right? He's not Will Anderson at Alabama, who's always at the top, right? Big 12 defenses are historically bad. I mean, just giving up. I mean, it's literally, can we outgun you, not can we stop you?
No defense over there,
right? I mean, look at TCU playing Michigan in the college football playoff, right? It was, their defense was not great. No. Made a couple of big plays, but and so maybe that's the potential reason why he could be being slept on. But that does kind of lead to the question that we're asking for this whole show. Is he like a diamond in the rough, next big thing in the NFL because of what he's being slept on?
Maybe. I I don't know if I want to say that because he's in a weird position because there's two guys ahead of him that people feel like are supposedly correct, but there's at least for let's say there's one for now. There's one guy playing at Alabama, star potential. You see him every weekend. You're always watching Bama play. You seeing him jump off the screen. Texas Tech, we didn't necessarily see that. He's a guy that you got to pay attention to and watch closely to understand his impact. And I don't know if he would necessarily be a star or like a diamond in the rough type player, but I do think he would have benefit with this team. And it's kind of like, to an extent, when we talk about with Jared Goff. If you're going to get a player that high, you're going to want to see some extreme bang for that buck. And if he's just coming in to be aight or just be serviceable,
right?
That's the question mark for me. I'm not saying he can't play. It's just how big of that impact is he going to have based on what that D-line needs.
I don't think that he's coming in to just be serviceable.
Right.
I think that the reason Dan Campbell talked about the it factor, right?
Right.
And there's only a few guys that I've talked to that have had it. The fact that he has a high grade leads me to believe he has
Think he's one of those guys? Okay.
And there was one thing that I read from PFF. So if you give me like just 1 second, one of his pros, uncoachable mentality to attack the man in front of him with reckless abandon.
That's
now
tough.
Tell me who that sounds like.
Sounds like Aaron Donald to me.
Sounds like Dan Campbell. Are you kidding me?
Dan Campbell. Yeah. Dan Campbell type of guy.
Uncoachable mentality to attack the man in front of him. I don't care if you have 3 butt cheeks and 2 knees or whatever he said during Hard Knocks. Like, that's an uncoachable mentality to attack somebody with reckless abandon. Like, it seems like that's a fit. So if that's a fit, let's then talk about, okay, what are the pros? What are the cons of drafting a Tyree Wilson? And maybe why is that a reason he's being slept on? We watched the highlight tape. You've done your research. I've done my research. What do you see? A couple strengths, a couple weaknesses that could be problematic.
The strengths that jump off the board, I mean, they're pretty obvious. Looking at him, he's a big dude, very long arms, which is a super benefit to have. I don't like short-armed defensive lineman, defensive tackle. I like guys with big arms that could, be impact players. I love seeing J.J. Watt, not for how he used to get after the quarterback, but how impactful he was in swatting passes down and impacting the game that way. Like, that is a huge benefit to have. And knowing he can line up anywhere on the field, or at least on that line, is another benefit and aspect for him. I feel like, I don't want to say this is necessarily a weakness for him, but to me, I haven't seen it. People say that he's like, I see a little bit of elusivity, but I haven't seen enough of it to say that he's not more than just a power rusher. To me, that's what I see. I think he'll be somebody that could be helpful in run support, which is something huge that this Lions team needs. I'm not sure how versatile he'll be as a pass rusher, because for me, all I saw was a bull rusher from the power side. That's all I saw. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more if they line him up in different positions, but that's what I saw so far from that.
Well, I mean, the scouts do agree with you. I mean, literally, NFL.com, hands need to become more skilled and violent as a pro rusher.
Yeah.
Play can be upright and narrow at the point of attack, slow to process movement, and loses contain. Like, so there's definitely that bull rush mentality. Right. Here's what I liked about him. Number one, you already mentioned it. The size is, you can't teach size, right? When you're 6'6", 275 and can move the way that he moves, that's uncoachable. So that's already right out the gate pro. But his positional versatility, and you've hit on it a little bit already, but even unknown positional ability is something that intrigues me about Tyree Wilson.
Okay.
Let me explain. In college, he played inside linebacker and outside linebacker. I don't know the last time I saw a 6'6", 275 outside linebacker, inside linebacker. That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Sounds like somebody who would be set up for failure in the NFL.
Fair.
However, knowing that he is pretty set on bull rushing, knowing that he's massively athletic, knowing that he's massive, you can move him off the edge and slide him into the wash a little bit. Use that athleticism in a different way, getting hands up in passing lanes. I mean, we've seen, and I've even heard on local radio some analysts talking about how more athletic the interior defensive line is getting.
Absolutely.
Right? This could be that guy for the Lions, which would fill a need in a way. However, I don't necessarily like the fact that he is slow off the ball.
Okay.
We saw that. Even in highlight tapes, we saw that. Very hesitant in his first step, which is dangerous for a defensive lineman in the NFL. Now, he picks up speed and he has playable speed when he gets up to speed. But it's literally a freight train, as I compared it last night on the live. It's not a quick first step. It's going to take momentum to get going. Potentially why I would maybe beef him up a little bit, slide him inside.
Right.
But I can live with that. That's not necessarily a deal breaker for me, right? It's something that I think is, again, an intriguing name at number 6 should the Lions be picking from number 6.
Yeah. You speak to a lot that could be. Again, if that's what the grade for Dan Campbell would be, it would make a lot of sense. I could see him being that guy, especially knowing that he and Aaron Glenn love versatility from all levels. They don't like just one guy sitting in one position. They like you being able to stand up, put your hand on the ground, blitz, drop in coverage. They want to see everything. And I think I'll wait for this. I'm going to wait for this question to ask you a little later because we're going to talk about him compared to the other guys. But I think that does serve as a benefit. And maybe his versatility is somewhat limited, but that's okay if it's going to be dominance from the tackle position. But yeah, it's going to be a lot, I believe, that'll probably have to be rounded out to really get that best impact out of him.
So we want to talk about his potential in the NFL. But before we get to that potential, let's talk to the people about GearUpDetroit.shop.
Let's talk about it, Detroit sports fans. Did you know you can now rep your favorite team in style without even leaving this page? Gear Up Detroit store is now available right here on YouTube, just below the video you're watching right now.
That's right. You can browse through our range of high-quality, unique, and stylish merchandise for all your favorite Detroit sports teams. The Lions, the Tigers, the Red Wings, and the Pistons. By the way, Tigers are doing pretty well now. Without missing a moment of your favorite Detroit sports show, Beyond the Box.
Also, if you want to explore even more awesome gear, you can always visit GearUpDetroit.shop for a full range of tees, hoodies, hats, and more, all designed by talented local artists.
So gear up for the next game or your draft party that's coming up next week that we'll be a part of because you'll be there with us. Support local creators and make a statement with Gear Up Detroit. And remember, you can shop right here on YouTube down below the video or visit GearUpDetroit.shop. Tyree Wilson at number 6. The Lions pick him there. What is the potential for him, given what we've discussed? The pros, the cons, the collegiate stats. What's the potential for a guy like him at number 6?
I feel like he has the upside of a high-end role player, like kind of what we see and what we're projecting for an Aleem McNeil to an extent. I don't know if I see star potential from him immediately. I feel like he's going to be a guy that His best impact is going to be what you see from the line and the defense as a collective. Like Hutch, I feel like Hutch could be a star from dominating and just being Hutch. I feel like if you see guys like maybe like Tyree Wilson or the guys like Ali McNeil, I feel like their best value is going to be seen from how the entire unit is playing. I feel like he does have tremendous upside. I do like the versatility that he brings. I'm just not sure if he's going to be that. Like, a lot of people get stuck on where people are drafted. And I think if he's not popping off the screen, I could maybe see frustration from Lions fans that maybe he's not well, they wanted him to be, especially if we want Will Anderson and Jalen Carter, two guys that we believe are going to flash off the screen at every possession. I'm not sure if I see that yet with Wilson. I could be wrong. I'll be the first to admit if I am. But I just feel like he can serve a little bit more as a role player based on what his position is.
That's interesting that you say that. And I'm going to actually make the call to action right now for our fans. Because I want to know what they say based on what you just said. Do you agree with Eric that at number 6, you're getting a role player whose impact is going to be seen more through the team's success than maybe his own star power? Let us know in the comments. We've given you everything you need to know about Tyree Wilson. He was a good collegiate player at the end, a late bloomer. He's got some cons against him. A little slow off the ball. Really only has one move. But he's got a lot of potential and a lot of upside. And is a very intriguing name at number 6. Let us know what you think in the comments below on Tyree Wilson coming to the Lions at number 6.